Welcome to Lunar Reflections, where we slow down, think deeper, and rediscover what truly matters in life. If you're tired of chasing things that don't fulfill you, this channel is for you. Make sure to subscribe and be part of a space that values meaning over noise. Now, let's begin. Leo Tolstoy is widely regarded as one of the greatest writers and moral thinkers in human history. Best known for his monumental novels like War and Peace and Anna Karenina, Tolstoy was not only a master storyteller, but also a profound philosopher deeply concerned with the human condition. Throughout his life, he explored questions about morality, purpose, truth, and the role of the individual in shaping society. His later works and personal reflections moved beyond literature into the realm of spiritual and ethical inquiry, where he challenged people to rethink how they live, act, and relate to the world around them. Unlike many thinkers who focused on abstract theories, Tolstoy's ideas were rooted in everyday life, emphasizing personal responsibility, simplicity, and inner transformation. It is from this deep well of reflection that one of his most powerful and enduring observations emerges. Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself. At first glance, this quote appears simple, almost obvious. Many people would agree that self-improvement is important. However, the deeper meaning behind Tolstoy's words reveals a profound truth about human nature, one that remains highly relevant in today's fast-paced, opinion-driven world. In modern society, people are constantly expressing their views about how things should change. We see it in conversations, on social media, in politics, and even in everyday interactions. Individuals passionately criticize governments, systems, institutions, and even other people, pointing out flaws and demanding change. While this desire to improve the world is not inherently wrong, in fact, it can be admirable, it often comes with a hidden contradiction. People tend to focus outward, directing attention toward what others are doing wrong, while rarely turning that same level of scrutiny inward. This imbalance raises an important question: why are we so eager to change the world, yet so reluctant to change ourselves? The answer lies partly in the nature of self-reflection. Looking inward requires honesty, humility, and courage. It forces individuals to confront uncomfortable truths about their own habits, attitudes, and behaviors. It is far easier to notice the faults of others than to admit one's own shortcomings. Criticizing the external world can feel empowering. It gives a sense of control and moral superiority. On the other hand, self-examination can be challenging and even painful, as it exposes areas where we fall short of our own values or expectations. As a result, many people unconsciously avoid this process, choosing instead to focus on external change. Another reason people prioritize changing the world over changing themselves is that internal transformation demands consistent effort and discipline. It is not a one-time decision, but an ongoing process that requires patience and commitment. Whether it involves improving one's character, developing better habits, or shifting one's mindset, personal change often happens slowly and requires persistence. In contrast, talking about changing the world can be immediate and effortless. It requires no deep personal sacrifice, only opinions and words. This creates a kind of illusion where individuals feel engaged in meaningful change without actually doing the hard work necessary to create real impact. Yet, despite these challenges, Tolstoy's quote points to a powerful truth: meaningful and lasting change in the world cannot occur without first addressing the individual. Society is not an abstract entity, it is made up of people. Every action, decision, and interaction contributes to the larger system we call the world. Therefore, if individuals fail to improve themselves, any attempt to change society will be incomplete or even ineffective. For example, a person who advocates for honesty but frequently lies in their personal life undermines their own message. Similarly, someone who demands kindness and respect from others but treats people poorly in daily interactions contributes to the very problems they claim to oppose. In this way, the gap between what people expect from the world and what they practice in their own lives becomes a major obstacle to real progress. Tolstoy's insight challenges us to rethink where true change begins. Instead of asking, "How can I change the world?" it encourages a more fundamental question: "How can I change myself?" This shift in perspective does not diminish the importance of improving society. Rather, it strengthens it. When individuals take responsibility for their own growth, they become more authentic, more consistent, and more capable of influencing others in a meaningful way. Personal transformation creates a ripple effect when one person improves. It can inspire others to do the same, gradually shaping a better environment. In this sense, changing oneself is not a selfish act, but a foundational step toward broader change. In today's world, where opinions are shared instantly and often loudly, Tolstoy's message is more relevant than ever. It serves as a reminder that real progress is not driven solely by external demands or large-scale movements, but by the quiet, often unseen work of self-improvement. It calls for a balance between outward action and inward reflection, urging individuals to align their values with their behavior. By doing so, people not only become better versions of themselves, but also contribute more effectively to the world they wish to change. Ultimately, the central idea of Tolstoy's quote can be summarized in a simple yet powerful thesis: true change begins within the individual. While it is natural to want to improve the world around us, lasting transformation can only occur when we first take responsibility for our own actions, thoughts, and character. By focusing on self-change, individuals lay the groundwork for a more genuine and sustainable impact on society. To fully understand the depth of Leo Tolstoy's statement, "Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself," it is important to carefully break down its key ideas. At its core, the quote contrasts two types of change: external change and internal change. While both are significant, Tolstoy emphasizes that people tend to prioritize the former while neglecting the latter, revealing a fundamental imbalance in human behavior. When Tolstoy refers to changing the world, he is pointing to the common desire. People have to improve society, fix problems, and influence the behavior of others. This idea can take many forms. It may involve wanting to reform political systems, improve social justice, reduce inequality, or create a more peaceful and fair environment. On a smaller scale, it can also mean wanting friends, family members, or co-workers to behave differently, to be more understanding, more responsible, or more aligned with one's expectations. In everyday life, people often express frustration with the world around them. They complain about corruption, criticize social norms, or point out the flaws in other people's actions. All of these responses reflect a natural human tendency to look outward and identify what needs to be fixed. This outward focus is not inherently wrong. In fact, the desire to make the world better is often rooted in good intentions. It shows that individuals care about their environment and want to see positive change. However, Tolstoy's insight lies in recognizing that this desire can become unbalanced when it is not accompanied by self-reflection. People may become so focused on what is wrong with the world that they fail to consider their own role in contributing to those problems. As a result, the effort to change the world can sometimes become more about assigning blame than creating meaningful solutions. In contrast, the phrase "changing himself" represents a much more personal and inward process. It involves self-awareness, honesty, and the willingness to examine one's own thoughts, behaviors, and attitudes. Changing oneself means recognizing personal flaws, acknowledging mistakes, and making a conscious effort to improve. This can include developing better habits, becoming more patient, practicing kindness, or learning to take responsibility for one's actions. Unlike changing the world, which often depends on external factors, changing oneself is entirely within an individual's control. It requires discipline, persistence, and a genuine commitment to growth. However, this internal process is often more difficult than it appears. Self-reflection can be uncomfortable because it forces individuals to confront aspects of themselves they may prefer to ignore. Admitting that one is wrong, biased, or inconsistent can challenge a person's sense of identity and self-worth. For this reason, many people avoid deep self-examination and instead focus on external issues where they feel more confident and less vulnerable. It is easier to point out someone else's mistakes than to admit one's own. This psychological tendency creates a barrier to personal growth and reinforces the habit of looking outward rather than inward. The deeper meaning of Tolstoy's quote lies in this contrast. It highlights a common pattern in human behavior. People often blame external circumstances for problems while overlooking their own responsibility. When something goes wrong, individuals may attribute it to society, other people, or unfavorable conditions, rather than considering how their own actions or attitudes may have contributed. This tendency to shift responsibility outward can provide temporary comfort, as it protects the ego and avoids feelings of guilt or inadequacy. However, it also prevents real change from occurring. For example, a person might complain about a lack of respect in society while frequently speaking harshly to others. Another might criticize dishonesty in the world, but tell small lies in daily life. In these situations, there is a clear disconnect between what individuals expect from others and what they practice themselves. This inconsistency weakens their ability to create meaningful change because their actions do not align with their values. Tolstoy's message challenges this contradiction by urging individuals to first align their own behavior with the ideals they wish to see in the world. Furthermore, the quote suggests that the root of many societal problems lies within individuals themselves. Society is not a separate entity. It is a collection of people, each contributing through their actions and decisions. If individuals are dishonest, impatient, or irresponsible, these qualities will inevitably be reflected in the larger system. Therefore, attempting to change society without addressing individual behavior can likely to produce lasting results. True transformation must begin at the personal level, where attitudes and habits are formed. Another important aspect of this idea is the concept of control. People often try to change things that are beyond their direct influence, such as the behavior of others or large-scale societal structures. This can lead to frustration and a sense of powerlessness when those efforts fail. In contrast, focusing on self-change shifts attention to something that is fully within one's control. While it may be challenging, it is also more practical and effective. By improving themselves, individuals can create a positive impact that extends beyond their immediate actions. Ultimately, Tolstoy's quote serves as a powerful reminder of where true change begins. It does not discourage people from wanting to improve the world, but it calls for a more balanced approach, one that starts with self-awareness and personal responsibility. By understanding the difference between changing the world and changing oneself, individuals can begin to recognize the importance of looking inward before looking outward. This shift in perspective is essential for creating genuine and lasting change, both at the personal level and within society as a whole. To understand why people are often more eager to change the world than to change themselves, it is necessary to look closely at human psychology and behavior. Leo Tolstoy's observation is not just a moral statement, it reflects a deeply rooted pattern in how people think, react, and protect their sense of identity. While the idea of improving the world may seem noble, it often masks a more uncomfortable truth. Changing oneself is significantly more difficult than pointing out what is wrong with others. One of the primary reasons for this tendency is that it is simply easier to criticize others than to examine one's own flaws. Human beings naturally notice differences, mistakes, and shortcomings in those around them. This outward focus requires little effort because it does not demand self-awareness or vulnerability. When people observe others, they can remain detached and objective, at least in their own minds. They can judge behaviors without questioning their own actions, which creates a sense of clarity and even superiority. In contrast, Turning that same critical lens inward requires a level of honesty that many people find uncomfortable. It means acknowledging personal weaknesses, biases, and inconsistencies, things that challenge one's self-image. This discomfort is closely tied to the human ego. Most people want to see themselves as good, capable, and morally right. When faced with evidence that contradicts this self-perception, it creates internal tension. Rather than confronting this tension directly, individuals often choose the easier path, focusing on external problems. By highlighting the faults of others, they can maintain a positive view of themselves without having to engage in difficult self-reflection. In this way, criticism of the outside world becomes a defense mechanism, a way to avoid confronting one's own imperfections. Another important factor is that personal change requires effort, discipline, and consistency. Unlike criticizing others or discussing how the world should improve, self-improvement is not immediate or easy. It demands time, patience, and a willingness to face setbacks. Whether it involves breaking bad habits, developing new skills, or adjusting one's mindset, meaningful change rarely happens overnight. It requires individuals to step out of their comfort zones and commit to long-term growth. This process can be exhausting, both mentally and emotionally, which makes it less appealing than simply talking about change. In addition, self-change requires a high level of honesty. People must be willing to admit when they are wrong, recognize harmful patterns in their behavior, and accept responsibility for their actions. This level of honesty can be difficult because it involves vulnerability. It means letting go of excuses and confronting the reality of one's own limitations. For many, this is a challenging and even intimidating experience. As a result, they may avoid it altogether, choosing instead to focus on external issues where they feel more confident and less exposed. The contrast between these two paths, external criticism and internal change, helps explain why so many people gravitate toward the former. Talking about how the world should be different is relatively easy. It can be done in conversations, online discussions, or casual observations, often without requiring any real commitment. On the other hand, changing oneself is a continuous process that demands action rather than words. It is not something that can be achieved through opinion alone. It requires consistent effort and accountability. Another key reason behind this tendency is the psychological comfort that comes from blaming external factors. When individuals attribute problems to society, other people, or circumstances, they protect themselves from feelings of guilt or inadequacy. Blame shifts responsibility away from the self and onto something else, making it easier to cope with challenges or failures. For example, a person who struggles to achieve their goals might blame the system, their environment, or other people's actions, rather than examining their own habits or decisions. While external factors can certainly play a role, relying solely on them as explanations prevents individuals from identifying areas where they could improve. This pattern of blame can become a habit, reinforcing a mindset in which people see themselves as victims of circumstances rather than active participants in shaping their lives. Over time, this mindset reduces motivation for self-improvement because it creates the illusion that change is beyond one's control. If the problem is always out there, then there is little reason to look inward. This not only limits personal growth, but also weakens the ability to contribute meaningfully to the world. Social influences also play a role in encouraging outward focus. In today's world, especially with the rise of social media, people are constantly exposed to opinions, debates, and criticism about global issues. Platforms often reward strong opinions and quick judgments, making it easier for individuals to engage in discussions about what is wrong with the world. However, these environments rarely encourage deep self-reflection or personal accountability. As a result, people may become more comfortable expressing their views about external problems while neglecting the internal work required for real change. Moreover, changing the world can feel more exciting and impactful than changing oneself. The idea of influencing society, making a difference, or contributing to a larger cause can be inspiring. It gives people a sense of purpose and importance. In comparison, self-improvement may seem small or insignificant, especially when progress is slow and not immediately visible. However, this perception overlooks an important truth. Lasting change at the societal level is built on the foundation of individual transformation. Ultimately, the preference for changing the world over changing oneself reflects a combination of psychological comfort, social influence, and the natural human tendency to avoid discomfort. It is easier to criticize than to reflect, easier to speak than to act, and easier to blame than to take responsibility. Yet, as Leo Tolstoy suggests, this imbalance prevents meaningful progress. By understanding these underlying reasons, individuals can begin to recognize their own tendencies and make a conscious effort to shift their focus inward. In doing so, they take the first step toward genuine change not only within themselves, but also in the world around them. While it is natural for people to dream about improving the world, Leo Tolstoy reminds us that the most powerful and meaningful change begins within the individual. Understanding why self-change is so important requires a shift in perspective from seeing change as something external and distant to recognizing it as something personal and immediate. When individuals commit to improving themselves, the impact extends far beyond their own lives, influencing families, communities, and society as a whole. At the most basic level, personal change creates a direct and visible effect on the people closest to us. Every individual exists within a network of relationships, family members, friends, co-workers, and neighbors. The way a person thinks, speaks, and behaves shapes the environment around them. For example, someone who develops patience and empathy can improve communication within their family, reducing conflict and building stronger connections. A person who practices honesty and responsibility sets a standard that others may feel encouraged to follow. These changes may seem small, but they create a ripple effect. When one person improves, it often inspires those around them to reflect on their own behavior. This ripple effect is what makes personal transformation so powerful. Society is not an abstract concept. It is a collection of individuals whose actions and attitudes collectively shape the world. If individuals are selfish, dishonest, or indifferent, those qualities will be reflected in the larger system. On the other hand, if individuals strive to be kind, disciplined, and responsible, those values will gradually influence the culture and norms of society. In this sense, changing oneself is not separate from changing the world. It is the foundation of it. Consider how social change often begins. Many movements, ideas, and cultural shifts start with individuals who embody the values they promote. Their actions give credibility to their message and inspire others to follow. Without personal integrity, even the most well-intentioned efforts to create change can lose their impact. People are more likely to be influenced by what they see than by what they are told. When someone consistently demonstrates positive behavior, it creates trust and authenticity, making their influence more effective. This is why self-change is so essential. It aligns one's actions with one's beliefs, turning ideals into reality. Another important reason why changing oneself matters is that it contributes to the gradual improvement of the world as a whole. While it may seem insignificant for one person to change, the cumulative effect of many individuals doing the same can be transformative. Imagine a society where people take responsibility for their actions, treat others with respect, and continuously strive for self-improvement. Such a society would naturally be more cooperative, more compassionate, and more stable. The idea that every person becoming better contributes to a better world is not just an abstract concept, it is a practical reality. This perspective also shifts the focus from control to responsibility. When people try to change the world directly, they often face obstacles beyond their control systems, institutions, and the behavior of others. This can lead to frustration and a sense of helplessness. In contrast, focusing on self-change places attention on something that is entirely within one's control. While it may not produce immediate large-scale results, it creates a steady and reliable path toward improvement. By taking responsibility for their own growth, individuals become active participants in shaping their environment rather than passive observers or critics. In addition to its external impact, changing oneself is essential for personal development. It allows individuals to grow in character, strengthen their mindset, and achieve long-term success. Personal growth involves more than just acquiring skills or knowledge. It requires developing qualities such as discipline, resilience, integrity, and self-awareness. These qualities not only improve one's ability to navigate challenges, but also contribute to a more meaningful and fulfilling life. For example, a person who works on self-discipline can build better habits, manage time more effectively, and achieve goals more consistently. Someone who develops emotional awareness can handle conflicts more constructively and maintain healthier relationships. A person who values honesty and accountability is more likely to earn trust and respect from others. These improvements are not only beneficial on a personal level, but also enhance one's ability to contribute positively to society. Long-term success, whether in personal life or professional pursuits, is often rooted in these internal qualities. External achievements may bring temporary satisfaction, but without a strong foundation of character and mindset, they are difficult to sustain. Self-change ensures that success is built on something stable and lasting. It creates a sense of alignment between who a person is and what they achieve, leading to a deeper sense of fulfillment. Furthermore, the process of changing oneself encourages continuous growth. It teaches individuals to reflect on their actions, learn from mistakes, and adapt to new challenges. This mindset of growth is essential in a constantly changing world, rather than being limited by past habits or beliefs. Individuals who commit to self-improvement remain open to new possibilities. They are better equipped to handle uncertainty, overcome obstacles, and pursue meaningful goals. Ultimately, Leo Tolstoy's message highlights a simple yet powerful truth. The most effective way to create lasting change is to begin with oneself. Personal transformation is not a small or insignificant act. It is the starting point for everything else. When individuals take responsibility for their own growth, they influence the people around them, contribute to a better society, and build a stronger foundation for their own success. By understanding the importance of self-change, people can move beyond the habit of merely wishing for a better world. Instead, they can take concrete steps to become better themselves, knowing that each improvement, no matter how small, plays a role in shaping a more positive and meaningful future. To better understand the truth behind Leo Tolstoy's statement, everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself, it is helpful to look at real-life examples. These examples reveal how the gap between external criticism and internal change plays out in everyday situations, as well as how personal transformation can create meaningful and lasting impact. By examining both negative and positive cases, we can see clearly why self-change is not only important, but essential. One of the most common and relatable examples can be seen in how people talk about environmental issues. Many individuals express strong opinions about pollution, climate change, and the responsibility of governments or corporations to protect the planet. They criticize large organizations for damaging ecosystems or failing to take action. While these concerns are valid, there is often a contradiction in personal behavior. Some of the same individuals who speak passionately about saving the environment may neglect basic habits such as reducing waste, recycling, or even maintaining cleanliness in their immediate surroundings. For instance, a person might complain about the amount of trash in public spaces, but still litter when it is inconvenient to find a trash can. Others may criticize industrial pollution while continuing to waste resources at home, such as leaving lights on unnecessarily or using excessive plastic. This example highlights the core issue Tolstoy pointed out. It is easy to demand change from large systems, but much harder to take responsibility for one's own actions. The irony is that if individuals consistently practice the values they advocate, such as responsibility, awareness, and care for the environment, the collective impact would be significant. Small personal actions, when multiplied across millions of people, can lead to meaningful change. However, when individuals focus only on external blame, they miss the opportunity to contribute directly. Another powerful example can be seen in the positive effects of personal change. When an individual makes a conscious effort to improve their habits and attitude, the influence often extends beyond themselves. Consider someone who decides to become more disciplined and positive in their daily life. They may start by organizing their schedule, setting clear goals, and maintaining a consistent routine. Over time, this person becomes more reliable, productive, and focused. Their behavior naturally affects those around them. Coworkers may feel motivated to improve their own work habits. Friends may adopt a more positive outlook, and family members may benefit from a more supportive and stable environment. This type of influence does not require formal authority or a large platform. It happens through everyday interactions. For example, a person who chooses to remain calm and respectful during conflicts can change the tone of a conversation, preventing it from escalating. Someone who consistently shows kindness and empathy can create a more welcoming and supportive atmosphere. These actions may seem small, but they have a cumulative effect. They demonstrate that change does not always need to be dramatic or large-scale. It can begin with simple, consistent improvements in behavior. This ripple effect is one of the most compelling arguments for focusing on self-change. When individuals embody the values they wish to see in the world, they lead by example. Others are more likely to be influenced by actions than by words alone. In this way, personal transformation becomes a form of quiet leadership, one that inspires without forcing and influences without demanding. The importance of self-change is also evident in the lives of great leaders and influential figures. Many of the individuals who have made a lasting impact on society began their journey with a strong focus on personal discipline and self-improvement. For example, Mahatma Gandhi is widely known for his principle of non-violence and his role in India's independence movement. However, his influence was not based solely on his ideas. It was rooted in how he lived his life. Gandhi practiced simplicity, self-discipline, and moral consistency. He did not just advocate for change, he embodied it. His famous belief, "Be the change you wish to see in the world," reflects the same idea expressed by Tolstoy, that personal transformation is the foundation of broader societal change. Similarly, Martin Luther King Jr. demonstrated the power of self-discipline and moral integrity in his leadership. His commitment to nonviolent resistance required immense inner strength, patience, and self-control. Despite facing hostility and injustice, he maintained a message of peace, equality, and dignity. His ability to influence millions of people was not just a result of his words, but of his character and consistency. He showed that true leadership begins with mastering oneself. These examples illustrate that meaningful change is not achieved by focusing solely on external conditions. Instead, it begins with the individual's ability to align their actions with their values. Leaders who fail to do this often lose credibility, as their behavior contradicts their message. On the other hand, those who commit to self-improvement gain trust and respect, making their influence more powerful and lasting. In everyday life, the same principle applies. A parent who teaches their children the importance of honesty must also practice honesty in their own actions. A teacher who encourages discipline must demonstrate discipline. A friend who values loyalty must act loyally. In each case, personal behavior reinforces or undermines the message being conveyed. This consistency is what gives self-change its power. It creates authenticity, which is essential for building trust and inspiring others. Ultimately, these examples reinforce Leo Tolstoy's insight. They show that while it is easy to identify problems in the world, real change begins with individual responsibility. Whether through small daily habits or the actions of great leaders, the pattern remains the same. When people focus on improving themselves, they create a positive influence that extends far beyond their immediate environment. By observing these examples, it becomes clear that self-change is not a limitation, it is an opportunity. It is the most direct and effective way for individuals to contribute to the world they wish to improve. The insight offered by Leo Tolstoy is not meant to remain an abstract idea. It is a practical guide for how individuals can live more intentionally and create meaningful change. From his statement, "Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself," several important lessons emerge, lessons that can be applied in everyday life. At the heart of these lessons are three essential principles: learning to examine oneself honestly, committing to small daily improvements, and taking responsibility for one's actions instead of placing blame on others. The first, and perhaps most important lesson, is the need for honest self-reflection. True personal growth begins with the ability to look inward without denial or excuses. This means recognizing not only one's strengths, but also one's weaknesses, mistakes, and areas for improvement. However, this process requires a level of honesty that many people find difficult to maintain. It is natural to want to protect one's self-image, to believe that one is already doing enough or that problems are caused by external factors. Yet, without confronting the truth about oneself, meaningful change cannot occur. Honest self-reflection involves asking difficult questions. Am I acting in alignment with my values? Do my actions match what I expect from others? Where am I falling short, and why? These questions are not always comfortable, but they are necessary. They create awareness, and awareness is the first step toward change. Without it, individuals remain stuck in patterns they may not even fully understand. By developing the habit of self-examination, people gain clarity about their behavior and begin to see where improvement is needed. At the same time, honesty must be balanced with self-compassion. The goal of self-reflection is not to judge or criticize oneself harshly, but to understand and improve. When individuals approach this process with patience and openness, they are more likely to learn from their mistakes rather than feel discouraged by them. This mindset transforms self-reflection from a source of discomfort into a powerful tool for growth. The second lesson is the importance of starting with small, consistent changes. One of the reasons people avoid self-improvement is that it can feel overwhelming. The idea of completely changing one's habits, mindset, or character may seem too large and difficult to achieve. However, meaningful transformation does not happen all at once. It is the result of small actions repeated over time. For example, a person who wants to become more disciplined does not need to change their entire routine overnight. They can begin by setting a simple goal, such as waking up at the same time each day or completing one important task before distractions arise. Similarly, someone who wants to improve their relationships can start by practicing active listening or expressing appreciation more often. These small steps may seem insignificant on their own, but they build momentum. Over time, they create new habits and gradually reshape behavior. This approach makes self-change more manageable and sustainable. Instead of focusing on perfection, individuals focus on progress. Each small improvement becomes a building block for larger transformation. This also reinforces motivation, as visible progress even in small amounts encourages continued effort. By committing to daily growth, individuals develop consistency, which is one of the most important factors in long-term success. Another advantage of starting small is that it reduces resistance. Large, sudden changes often trigger discomfort and lead to failure because they disrupt established routines too quickly. In contrast, small changes are easier to adopt and maintain. They allow individuals to gradually adjust without feeling overwhelmed. This steady approach aligns with the reality of human behavior. Lasting change is not dramatic, but incremental. The third lesson is the importance of taking responsibility for one's actions instead of blaming others or external circumstances. This principle is central to Tolstoy's message. When individuals consistently place blame on the outside world, they give up control over their own lives. They become passive, waiting for conditions to change rather than taking action themselves. While external factors can influence outcomes, they do not eliminate personal responsibility. Taking responsibility means acknowledging that one's choices, actions, and attitudes play a significant role in shaping one's experiences. It involves recognizing that even when circumstances are difficult, there is always some level of control over how one responds. For example, a person cannot always control how others behave, but they can control their own reactions. They can choose patience over anger, understanding over judgment, and action over complaint. This shift in mindset is empowering. Instead of feeling limited by external conditions, individuals begin to see opportunities for growth within themselves. They move from a position of blame to a position of ownership. This does not mean ignoring real challenges or injustices. Rather, it means focusing on what can be done personally to respond effectively. By taking responsibility, individuals become more proactive, resilient, and capable of creating change in their own lives. Furthermore, responsibility strengthens integrity. When people take ownership of their actions, they become more accountable and trustworthy. They no longer rely on excuses or deflection, but instead face challenges directly. This builds confidence and respect, both from themselves and from others. It also reinforces the connection between actions and outcomes, making it easier to learn from experience and improve over time. Together, these three lessons on self-reflection, small daily changes, and personal responsibility form a practical framework for self-improvement. They transform Tolstoy's insight from a simple observation into a guide for action. By applying these principles, individuals can move beyond the habit of merely wishing for a better world and begin actively contributing to it through their own growth. Ultimately, Leo Tolstoy's message reminds us that the path to meaningful change is not found in grand declarations or external criticism, but in the quiet, consistent effort to improve oneself. When individuals commit to this process, they not only transform their own lives, but also create a positive influence that extends far beyond what they might initially imagine. In reflecting on the powerful words of Leo Tolstoy, everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself. We are reminded of a truth that is both simple and deeply profound. This statement captures a fundamental pattern in human behavior, the tendency to look outward for solutions while neglecting the inner work required for real change. It challenges us to reconsider where transformation truly begins and invites us to shift our focus from external expectations to personal responsibility. Far from being just a philosophical observation, Tolstoy's message serves as a timeless guide for how individuals can live more intentionally and contribute meaningfully to the world around them. At its core, the quote emphasizes that the desire to change the world, while admirable, is often incomplete without self-awareness. Many people dream of a better society, one that is more just, more compassionate, and more honest. They speak out against problems, advocate for improvement, and envision a different future. However, these aspirations lose their strength when they are not supported by personal action. A world cannot become more honest if individuals continue to act dishonestly. It cannot become more respectful if people fail to treat others with respect in their daily lives. In this way, the gap between what people expect from the world and what they practice themselves becomes a barrier to true progress. Tolstoy's insight urges us to close this gap by beginning with ourselves. It reminds us that the world is not separate from the individual, it is shaped by the collective behavior of countless individuals. Every choice, every interaction, and every habit contributes to the larger picture. When people overlook their own role in this process, they limit their ability to create meaningful change. But when they take responsibility for their own growth, they unlock a powerful source of influence that extends far beyond what they might initially imagine. This leads to one of the most important ideas in the entire discussion. Real change does not start from the outside. It begins from within. While external efforts such as policies, movements, and collective actions are important, they are only effective when supported by individuals who embody the values they promote. Without internal alignment, external change becomes fragile and inconsistent. On the other hand, when individuals commit to improving themselves, their actions become authentic and consistent, strengthening the impact of any effort to create a better world. Changing oneself requires courage. It means facing uncomfortable truths, letting go of excuses, and making a conscious effort to grow. It involves developing discipline, practicing empathy, and striving for integrity even when it is difficult. This process is not always easy, and it does not produce immediate results. However, it is the most reliable and sustainable path to transformation. Unlike external circumstances, which may be unpredictable and beyond control, personal change is something each individual has the power to pursue every day. Moreover, self-change creates a ripple effect that reaches far beyond the individual. When one person becomes more patient, it can reduce conflict in their relationships. When someone chooses honesty, it builds trust within their community. When an individual adopts a positive and responsible mindset, it can inspire others to do the same. These small, consistent actions accumulate over time, gradually shaping a more supportive and constructive environment. In this way, the process of changing oneself becomes a quiet, yet powerful force for broader change. It is also important to recognize that self-change is not a one-time achievement, but a lifelong journey. There is no point at which a person can say they are completely finished improving. Growth requires continuous reflection, learning, and adaptation. Each day presents new opportunities to make better choices, to act with greater awareness, and to align more closely with one's values. This ongoing process keeps individuals engaged, motivated, and open to new possibilities. Ultimately, Tolstoy's message is both a challenge and an invitation. It challenges individuals to move beyond the comfort of criticism and take a more active role in their own development. At the same time, it invites them to discover the power they already possess, the ability to shape their own character and, through it, influence the world around them. Instead of waiting for others to change or for circumstances to improve, individuals are encouraged to take the first step themselves. The call to action is clear. If we truly want to see a better world, we must begin by becoming better ourselves. This does not require grand gestures or dramatic transformations. It starts with small, deliberate choices, choosing kindness over indifference, responsibility over blame, and growth over complacency. These choices, repeated consistently, create a foundation for meaningful change. In the end, the significance of Leo Tolstoy's words lies in their practicality. They remind us that while we may not be able to control everything in the world, we always have control over ourselves, and in that control lies the greatest opportunity for change. By committing to personal growth, each individual becomes a part of the solution rather than merely an observer of the problem. If every person took this message seriously, if each of us chose to look inward, to improve, and to take responsibility, the collective impact would be extraordinary. The world we hope to see would no longer be a distant ideal, but a reality shaped by our own actions. And it all begins with a simple but powerful decision to change ourselves. Thank you for spending this quiet moment with Lunar Reflections. I truly appreciate you being here and listening all the way through. If this story brought you even a little clarity or peace, don't forget to subscribe and stay with us on this journey. Now, as the day comes to an end, I hope you can let go of everything that's been weighing on your mind. Take a deep breath and allow yourself to rest. Wishing you a calm heart, a peaceful mind, and a truly restful night.